All right, so yeah, once again, this is going to be recorded, the presentation portions of this meeting. And so yeah, welcome to the very first XR Club workshop of this semester. We're really excited to see so many people here. And so this workshop is entitled Setting Up Your XR Development Environment. We find that there are a lot of XR tools, and sometimes people don't necessarily know where to start, what specific tools to use, maybe what versions to download, and even on the pages of certain tools, different links might take you to different versions of the tools or different methods of downloading the tools. And so we decided to put together this workshop to basically guide you through the process of setting up your XR development environment so that it's easier for you to get started later on once we get into the workshops of actually developing in Unity XR applications. So Unity will be the main platform that we'll be using, and we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, once we get started with the actual workshops moving forward, you'll be ready to start, basically open up the Unity editor and just right off the bat start working on the projects and the workshops. So we're going to start by doing this in kind of a reverse format than what we may typically do. Generally, we may introduce a certain concept or tool and talk about like what it is, why we use it, and so forth, before moving on to the actual hands-on portion, so you have an understanding of kind of why we're doing stuff. But this time, for this workshop, we're going to do it kind of in a reverse format. So we're going to first go ahead and start downloading the tools and installing the tools. And then at the end, we'll kind of go into why we're using these specific tools. And the reason for that is because these tools can take quite a while to download. They're many gigabytes, even tens of gigabytes, depending on like what platforms you select. And so it might take a while for you to actually download it. And so we'll go ahead and get that process started so it can install in the background while we move ahead with other portions of our presentation. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get started with, creating your Unity ID. So your Unity ID is basically your user account for Unity, and it's pretty much serves as like your account for any kind of Unity service or product that you will use. It's used to manage your Unity licenses. You can collaborate with other team members on projects using the Unity Collab tool. You can access Unity services in your games and through your Unity ID. Services like multiplayer matchmaking, their ad services, stuff like that. You can purchase assets on the Unity Asset Store, so other 3D models that people have created. You can create other 3D models, scripts, tools, plugins, etc. You can post questions to the Unity forums if you're having any questions or are stuck with anything. It gives you access to the forums right there, and the forums themselves are also the Unity team themselves goes through the forums, so you can directly have an access in communication to people working at Unity, for example. And you can also use Unity Connect. That's one of their services to join groups. You can publish your games on the web for others to play. They even have like a job function up there, so you can search for jobs where they're using Unity. So a lot of really great, cool stuff right there. So yeah, just go ahead and the first step here is to create a Unity account. So the link is there, id.unity.com. If you go there, you should be able to find a place to create an account. So make sure to create an account. I believe you can sign in with Google, your Google account if you wish. There's no need for this account to specifically be your Terpmail account. You can use any kind of email to create this account. But yeah, the first step is to go ahead and create this Unity account. So the second step is to sign into GitHub. So GitHub, we'll get into why in a second, but GitHub is basically just a tool that is used for project collaboration in a lot of software development projects. So the GitHub Student Developer Pack, it's basically it's a set of tools. So there's a bunch of developer tools created by a bunch of different companies. And GitHub, one of their missions is to try to provide this free for students so that they can learn. And so GitHub partners with a bunch of these different companies to offer their tools as part of this pack. They take care of verifying the student status on behalf of those companies so that the companies don't need to create their own systems of doing this. And so there's all sorts of tools that are included as part of this, like everything in cloud computing. You can get like credits on the Microsoft Azure cloud or the AWS cloud. There's IoT services, stuff in mobile development, security, a bunch of different cool tools, even domain names. There are a bunch of different cool tools that are provided free to you as students. And Unity is part of this offer. So they've partnered with GitHub to offer a bunch of free stuff as part of that. One of that is the Unity Pro license. So the second thing will be verifying your student status here. And so right after this, we're gonna go take a quick break into breakout sessions so that you can go ahead and go through these steps of basically creating your Unity ID, creating your the GitHub student developer pack, and then linking it to your Unity, your Unity account, your Unity ID that you just created. But any quick questions before I move forward with that? Yes. So someone asked about adding an existing GitHub account or adding whether you need to use your email, your UMD email for the GitHub account. If you already have a GitHub account, you don't need to use the UMD email specifically to create the account, but you will have to add it as an additional email afterwards in order to verify your student status. Cool. So I'll just quickly go through some of these links here. Before we get into these breakout sessions, so if you open up here, if I go into, let's see, that first link was unity.id.com. So, well, I was already signed in here, but yeah, that was the first link. If you weren't signed in, this is kind of where you would go. And then, so the second link was with GitHub, right? GitHub.com. And specifically, if you go and, well, once you sign in here as well, but specifically, once you create your account, if you go to education.github.com, you will see this GitHub student developer pack right here. So if you go ahead and click on that and click on get your pack up here, then you'll see that they have a portal here basically where you go through and in order to verify your student status. They say it can take a couple of days or even a couple of weeks, but that's usually for if you're using some other form of verification, for example, sending in a transcript or a student ID card. If you take a picture of that, you can use those as verification, but for those, a human has to manually go through and kind of verify that. So those kind of things takes a few weeks, but if you're just linking your email address, we found that works pretty much instantaneously almost. So you should be able to get verified pretty quickly here. So just kind of fill out this form here, and once you submit your information, you should be good to go. The final step is if you go to the Unity student plan here, and you click, just search it up on like Google or Bing or anything here, and if you go to the Unity student plan, the final thing that you need to do is this last step here, you click on the activate button. And so that will basically go and link your Unity account with your GitHub account. So let's see. So we're gonna go ahead and break out into breakout sessions right now. I'll post some of those links in the chat as well, and we'll take a few minutes for everyone to get caught up with all of this.
5 minutes later.
All right, so the next thing that we're gonna do is we're going to actually download Unity. So I posted a link in the chat there. If you click on that link, you should come to a page that's like this. Make sure to download the Unity Hub. That is basically serves as a way to manage all the Unity versions that you have and your accounts and licenses, even if you have different Unity versions. If you want to upgrade Unity versions in the future, all of that is kind of maintained within the Unity Hub. So definitely make sure to download that. And so you can just go ahead, click the download link and install it. And we'll give about a minute or so for that.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and open up my Unity. So I'm gonna go ahead and open that up here. So basically what you need to do is, your Unity Hub may not look like this just yet. It will probably be on the license management form here. So if you see here, this is what the license, right now, my license is already activated, but for you, you'll probably see a screen here that says you don't have. Your Unity Hub will show this basically. And so your Unity Hub may not necessarily obviously have a license yet, since you haven't activated it. Basically, you just log in. So the first thing you do is click the icon up here, make sure that you log in so that you can actually access the license. And then you click here on Activate New License. What you'll have to do is you'll have to click on the Unity Plus or Pro. And basically, there will be a serial number where there will be a serial number that should have been emailed to you after you completed the previous steps. So you can go ahead and just copy over that serial number into this license agreement. If for some reason you were having trouble getting access to the Unity license, having trouble verifying your student status, it's perfectly all right to also just go ahead and download the Unity Personal at this time. And you can always come back to this license management. We can help you at the end. If you're having trouble with this, you can always come back and change your license at the end once you do get access to the full Unity Pro. So just go ahead and enter that number and click on Done, and it should pretty much pop up. It should recognize the serial number, and you should be able to go back here to the home screen. The second thing that you want to do is go here to the Installs button. And then once you're on the Installs, you click on the Add button here. And it will tell you to select a version of Unity. What you'll see here is that there are a bunch of different official releases here. You can see like there's the 2020.1.6, there's 2019.4.11 F1, 2018.4.27. There's like a pre-release version, a beta version that you can use as well. So which version do you want to select? In particular, the two that a lot of people generally contemplate between is the latest version here and the LTS version. And so we're going to go and talk about that for a bit right now. Basically what the differences are kind of between those. So the way that Unity describes it is they call this a tech version and a long-term support version, or they call it different streams. They used to have 3 different streams per year. And basically, those would primarily add new features and stuff. And then by the time the next year's tech releases were released, the previous year's tech release, it basically becomes the long-term support version of that year's Unity platform. And that's supported for 2 years. And so we'll go into the reason in a bit, but also just one quick change is in 2020 and moving forward, Unity decided to instead move it down to 2 releases, 2 tech releases per year, to just give it more time to for beta testing and just making sure that the tech releases were of a better quality and had more substantial features and stuff. So basically, yeah, this is basically kind of a summary of that. The tech releases contain the latest Unity features. The LTS versions are only contain the bug fixes that are designed to, and so they're designed to support projects that are near completion or maintenance mode. So kind of that's the big difference between this. If you're just starting on a project and you want to, if you're just starting on a project, you're learning about stuff, or you want to just, if you're not really tied down to an older version, then it's a great opportunity for you to make use of the latest that Unity has to offer. But on the other hand, let's say you've been working on a project for months or even years, you're almost at the end of the completion. You don't want your project to be broken by a new feature that comes out. So that's kind of what LTS mode is designed for. There's no new features introduced. It's more of just bug fixes. And so both the tech releases and LTS streams get bug fixes every 1 to 2 weeks. The tech releases just has additional features added on every few months. So with each of their major releases. That being said, before we get into actually downloading, the version of Unity that you want to select is the LTS version, the 2019.4 version. And the reason for that is because a lot of the tutorials that Unity has built is currently driven around the LTS version. So it would be best in terms of compatibility for you to download the 2019.4 LTS version. And a lot of our workshops are also going to be based on that as well. You're able to download multiple different versions of Unity as well, if you wish. So you can download both the tech version and an LTS version and have both installed on your computer at the same time in case you do want to make use of some of the latest features. So we're going to go ahead into, so right now I currently have the tech version installed. I don't have the LTS. So let's go ahead and see what the next screen entails here. So before we get into that, I do know there's quite a bit of questions in the chat. Developing XR. Okay, so someone asked about if we want to continue developing with XR, will we have to buy a license or will we get a new one? The thing for that is you can always continue with the personal version of Unity. You don't need to continue with the pro version. That being said, the GitHub, you can always re-verify after the end of the year. So you can re-verify your GitHub student status, you can re-verify your student status with Unity, and you can just basically renew your license in that way for as long as you're a student. The 1 year is just to make sure that you don't have access to that for an infinite amount of time. It's basically there so that you'll have to re-verify your student status every year. But once you're no longer a student, you can still continue using Unity for free under the personal license. Yes, you should return your, so someone asked if they already have a personal license, whether they should return it before adding the licenses, the pro license. And so yes, you should do that. What do we do after we enter the serial number? So yeah, that's pretty much here. You go on to the, once you go back here onto the main Unity Hub page, if you click here on installs and click on the add button, that's how you'll get into the installs. Yeah, so that's pretty much how it is. And so we're caught up with the question. Yeah, great. Irene's covering some of the questions, so great job there. Cool. And so, yeah, so now we're going into here. Let's take a look. So here are some of the different options that you can select under the Unity installation. So these are just some of the items that I had previously ticked. You don't necessarily need to tick all of them, but I'm going to basically go into depth into a couple of them. So when I go here under my slides, the first thing to note is the C# code editor. So by default, Unity includes, so Unity supports 3 different C# code editors: Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, and JetBrains Writer. Basically, what it means to be supported is that they have plugins that allow you to have automatic code completion for all of the Unity classes and their provided functions and whatnot. So they have code completion features on these 3 different code editors. Visual Studio is their recommended code editor, and Unity allows you to download that right from the Unity Hub itself. So if you don't have any of these installed, or if you're new to development in general, new to Unity, we'd recommend you download the Visual Studio option from the Unity Hub. If you are a bit more advanced, or you already have Visual Studio Code, for example, installed on your computer, or you want to try one of these other ones, you're welcome to go and download those. We're not really going to cover much about the download process of these. JetBrains Writer is basically, it's similar to like Android Studio or IntelliJ. It's basically JetBrains C# editor. So those other editors are also maintained by JetBrains. So it has a similar look and feel to those other editors. PyCharm's another one of JetBrains editors. But yeah, you can pretty much choose any of these that you wish. But yeah, if you're if you're a beginner and new to this, we recommend that you stick with the Visual Studio since that's directly installed by Unity and you don't need to deal with any additional setup. Cool. Yes, yes. So it is the same as the Microsoft Visual Studio Community Edition. So that's what I can actually show this right here. Someone asked if the Visual Studio is the same as the Community Edition that's listed there. And so can everyone see my Unity Hub screen? I know there was a problem with that before.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, cool. So if you go into the installations here, you see there's this Microsoft Visual Studio Community Edition. If you have a Mac, it will just say Microsoft Visual Studio for Mac. Either of those, this is the one that you want to check here. So the second thing that we have here are the Unity platforms. So one of the good things with using Unity is it supports a wide variety of platforms, everything from iOS, Android, the Universal Windows platforms, PlayStation for like consoles, PCs, computers, web, TVs even, cloud-based streaming services like Google Stadia. And what we're really interested in is with the AR and VR side of things and all of those platforms. So Unity supports those as well. You can see like Oculus and AR Core and Microsoft HoloLens and whatnot. So some of these require like special licenses with the different companies, so they're not available publicly. Unity doesn't kind of advertise these publicly on their the hub page unless you specifically like link your PlayStation developer license, for example. But there are certain ones that are available for everyone, and those are what we're going to kind of take a look at here. The ones of interest here. So there are a couple of considerations here. But ones of interest I'm going to go over. Android is of interest if you want to like build stuff with, for example, for AR Core for Android devices, Android AR applications, Google Cardboard applications for Android, or other kind of Google, like Google Daydream applications. If you want to do like smartphone VR, even Samsung Galaxy VR, for example, that is all stuff you would do check the Android build support for. And when you do that, I strongly suggest that you download the Android SDK and the OpenJDK that with Unity as well. The reason I say this is I know a lot of people might already have Java installed on their systems, for example, and you may have installed the Android SDK separately via like Android Studio, for example, if you've already done some mobile development. I still recommend you select these. These don't override your existing settings. These are just an additional instance of the Android SDK and the Java instance that will specifically be used by Unity, but for nothing else. So it won't change your existing settings. If you already have Java and you're using it with Eclipse, it won't change those Eclipse settings to use it with this. And the reason I say this to use these specific tools here is because there are certain problems that can arise in Unity if you use a different version of the JDK. Like they really focus on JDK 8, but if you use like JDK 9 or JDK 13 or something else, there might be problems. Similar with the Android SDKs, and if you use versions of the SDK and NDK that aren't really what Unity expected, then there may be some problems. So that's why it's just a good idea to kind of have Unity handle all of these if you're downloading for the Android. Unity will automatically take care of all the setup and linking of all of this if you select these, so there's no other setup required on the Android side if you go ahead and select these. iOS, so there's a second thing here. So iOS, when you build an iOS project, it exports to the Xcode platform for the final deployment. And this is a limitation by Apple itself. Basically anything, if for anyone to develop an iOS application, Apple wants it to kind of go through them and their own IDE. So this, even if you use other tools for app development, all in the end, any kind of iOS app has to go through the Xcode IDE and the Xcode system. So even that applies for Unity as well. So what Unity does is it builds an Xcode project, and then you can open up the Xcode project in Xcode, and we'll get into some of these additional tools at the end if people are interested. But yeah, Unity builds these additional projects. Unity exports these projects to an Xcode project, and then you open it up in Xcode. What this means is you can develop for iOS on Windows, and you can generate the Xcode project on Windows, but you cannot open the Xcode project on Windows since the Xcode IDE is by Apple and only available on Macs as a result. Other things of interest might be like Windows build support or PC build support. This is especially important if you want to do like build an exe for VR games. For example, you have a VR headset that you connect to a computer. Note that you do not need the build support specifically to develop and test VR games. You can do all of that right from within Unity. The build platform support is specifically just if you want to create an executable. So in other words, like a .exe file that like you can double click and open up, and you can use that to share with others, upload it onto stores like the Steam store, for example. Yeah, so then the next is the WebGL build. Not really as relevant in the space of XR, but if you do want to create like a game for the web, you can go ahead and build that. You can. The next one is the Windows build support. I discussed that before. The main thing here is universal Windows platform support. This is important if you want to build apps for the HoloLens. If you're interested in developing for the HoloLens, which is an augmented reality headset, you should click the universal Windows platform support. That's basically Microsoft's their vision of creating a core Windows that runs on any kind of platform, from desktops to like Windows Phone that used to exist, and to Xbox, to the holographics and mixed reality platforms that run Windows. HoloLens is part of that. So if you want to develop a HoloLens app, you want to select the universal Windows platform support. Windows build support is just for desktop. This is for all other kinds of Windows applications, including for Windows Mixed Reality and Windows HoloLens headsets. The final is LumenOS, which is the Magic Leap, the OS that runs Magic Leap. Magic Leap is, again, another AR headset. It's a competitor to the HoloLens. If you're interested in that, you can select this as well. And for both the HoloLens and Magic Leap, there are additional SDKs that you will have to download. The Windows 10, the HoloLens, Windows 10 SDK and UWP support is downloaded through Visual Studio. So since you're already downloading Visual Studio, we can show you at the end, once all of this is installed, how you can go and modify that installation to add the HoloLens support specifically. But yeah, those are just kind of the breakdown of the different platforms that are there. You're welcome to kind of go and pick and choose what you may be interested in. Like if you don't have an iOS device, you don't have to select the iOS build support. But if you want to develop for HoloLens, you can select the UWP support, for example. So you can pick and choose which ones you want. One thing to note is that if you go and you're not able to uninstall modules later, but you can go and add additional modules afterwards. You can obviously uninstall the entire editor and reinstall everything from scratch. Obviously not something that you want to do, but it's an option. But yeah, just something to keep in mind with all this. I think this is a good place to kind of break out into breakout rooms. So we'll do that again. We'll give it a couple of minutes, and then we'll return here at the end for a few minutes to just kind of review like why exactly are we using Unity. You can do that as this is downloading in the background. So let's break out into your rooms now.
2,000 years later.
All right, so now we're gonna go and get into Unity specifically. So while that's installing in the background, now let's talk about why is it that we use Unity specifically. And so for this, I'm also gonna go here to optimize. All right, so yeah, so for that, we have a tool here as well, or for that, so Unity, all right, so yeah, now let's discuss about like why we're using Unity, right? So Unity is a game engine, or it was originally designed as a game engine, and it really grew in popularity as the mobile industry took off, back in 2007, like the iPhone was released and Android was released shortly after that. And basically the entire games industry, mobile games industry was created out of that and really took off. Unity really moved forward with that opportunity and a lot of games were now developed with Unity in the mobile space. Unity is used for a lot of different platforms, as you saw before, but mobile platforms, it especially got a strong foothold with that. And over half of the top 1,000 games on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store were created with Unity. I can actually, if I just download a random game right now, I can actually connect it to my phone, and I can connect my phone to my computer and actually see if it was made with Unity and what versions of Unity it was made with the different debugging tools. So that's just another cool thing that you may be able to do in the future. But yep, that is a lot of cool games have been made with Unity. So let's just take a look here with that. All right, so just some real quick examples. You might be wondering, like, which games specifically have been like made with Unity, if there's any big ones that you know about. So So the next thing is a lot of people might wonder is, you know, why do we use a game engine, right? Because this is the XR club, right? It's not the video game club. It's not the game developers club. And sure, while you can create AR and VR games, there's as many of you may have seen from our kickoff event, there's a lot more to XR than simply just games, right? It's disrupting all the different industries, from healthcare to medical, to the automotive industry, to the military and whatnot. So then why do you use a game engine? Is it that game engines really only support these games? Or do you only use it to create XR games? Or can you actually use it for the other things as well? And so the answer to that is that you do use game engines. Game engines are actually really great for using XR, for developing XR applications for a variety of reasons. Because they provide a lot of the things that are required to create a video game are actually very similar to a lot of things that would be useful for XR development as well. First, let's take a look at like graphics, for example. In video games, you're dealing with 3D environments, right? Immersive 3D environments. And often it's much easier to use a game editor, game engine, where you can visualize all of those 3D artifacts and the layout of all the 3D items, rather than trying to think about it in code and manually trying to use just text to set the positions. It's a lot easier to if you can actually see it on the screen and edit it in a visual environment. So from the graphics standpoint, game engines are really great for XR development as well, because you're dealing with 3D spaces. Both for AR and for VR, you're dealing with 3D objects, so that's great. The second thing is with physics systems, right? So game engines provide physics systems, because in games, you want things to behave as they would in the real world. If you shoot a bullet in a shooter game, for example, you want that bullet to move realistically and be affected by various forces like gravity and whatnot. The same is true with XR experiences, right? When you have if I have a ball and I throw the ball in VR, I want it to actually be thrown in a realistic manner, and that includes that includes simulating all the gravity, the air resistance, and all of that kind of stuff, rather than trying to do all of that from scratch. Since a game engine already provides a great physics system built in, it's great to take advantage of that for developing XR as well. Audio is another great thing because games use audio, and so game engines make it easier to add audio effects, sound effects, background music with a lot of XR experiences that are in an immersive world. Immersion involves more than just your sense of sight. It involves other senses as well, including your sound. So having a great audio support is a great reason for this as well. Networking is another great reason. You might want to have multi-user experiences. You might want to do stuff with accessing cloud services and whatnot. Networking is great to have various networking options built into the editor, as well as other third-party networking options that support the editor. So that's a great reason as well. You may want to have menus in your applications, right? Both menus that are present within the real world, like physically stays in the same place, as well as menus that just stay on the screen. Games have both of those, and XR experiences also use both of those. So having support for a great UI system is what makes game engines really useful for XR development as well. And finally, game engines don't just give you a standard set of functionalities, but allow you to use scripting to create your own custom behaviors of various 3D objects, so that you can add your own, basically customize your game or customize your application however you see fit. So even if you're not just developing a game, using a game engine like Unity is makes things a lot easier for XR development. And so that's why we tend to use it. That's why it's actually used very commonly in the XR field. I know over 60% of AR and VR experiences have been created by Unity, have been created with the Unity platform. Like for HoloLens development, for example, that number is even higher. I believe it's like 80 or even 90%. So yep, it's very highly used in the XR space. And that's actually why in recent years, Unity's caught on to that something like this is no longer just useful in the in the gaming space, but it's also useful in the overall, it's also useful in general. And so they've kind of rebranded a lot of their marketing to say the Unity real-time 3D development platform. If you go onto the Unity site today, you no longer see the reference to the Unity game engine that you may have maybe 2 years ago. And this is kind of also the approach that the Unity is seeing moving forward, especially as they just recently went for their IPO. And so that kind of sums up like what Unity is all about. Unity's now pitching, they know that a tool like this is going to be extremely beneficial for development for all sorts of applications in the future as XR really reaches the masses. And so, it's not just used for XR, it's used in the film industries, it's used by automotive industries and whatnot. But yeah, they see that XR can really be used by everyone. And so finally to end off, Unity believes that that you can now use Unity to shape the world. And that's what we hope that all of you are able to do in the future. And so let's take a look at this one final video here.
Who first shared their stories in caves? Connected art, nature, and science led us toward new horizons. Who thought to capture motion? Spark an engine to life. Turn television into a playground. Every day, you create the playful, the functional, and the unexpected. You break down walls and take us to astonishing places. Tell stories, leap borders, and create beauty for tomorrow. Because at Unity, we believe the world is a better place with more creators in it, where everyone has a chance to shape the world.
All right, so yeah, so just make sure, so thanks everyone for coming out once again. So I'm going to stop the recording now.